Devi Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Brinda Devi Brinda Devi Tulsi Maharani Brinda Devi Jaya Brinde Jaya Brinde Jaya Brinde Jaya Shri Brinde Brinde Jaya Brinde Jaya Brinde Jaya Shri Brinde.
Jaya Radha Madhova Kunya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopi Danamadaba Hidivadunare Gopi Janabalaba Hidivadunare Lapa Hidivadana Yasudanan Dana Brajajana Ranjana Yasudanan Dana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Manachare Yamuna Tira Manachare Jai Radha Madhuva Kunya Bihagute Jai Radhu Madhava Kunya Bihagute Gopi Jana Balaba Yiri Badadhane Gopi Jana Balaba Yiri Badadhane Yasuranandana Prajajana Ranshana Yasuranandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachanti Yamuna Tera Banachari Jayo Ranu Madhuva Kunya Bihagute Jai Radhu Madhuva Kunya Bihare Kunya Bihare Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravatikacharya also Teta Satashi Shibad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charana the Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Maturadam Ki Jai Jagadata Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shrimati Lassi Devi Ki Jai Samavita Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Budale. Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Samariti Namani. Namaste Saraswati Deve. Gauravani Pacharane. Nivashesha Shunyavadi. Paschacha Deja Tarani. So we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 62nd chapter, text 22. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sa cha thong sundara vadam vilokya mudithanana dusprekshe swagrahe pumbe reme apradyundana samam Satchatam Sundarabharahum Vilokya Mudithanana Dushprekshe Swagrahe Pumbi Reme Prajunenasamam Satchatam Sundaravarahum Vilokya Mudithanana Dushprekshe Swagrike Pumbi Reme Prajunenasamam Sachatam Sundaravatrang Vilokya Mudithanana Dusprekshe Swagrike Pumbi Reme Prajunenasamam. Okay. Right? Sa, she, cha, and tam, him. Sundaravatam, the most beautiful man. Vilokya, beholding. Mudita, joyful. Ananda, her face. Dusprekshe, which was not to be seen. Sva, in her own. Grahe, quarters. Pumbi, by men. Reme, she enjoyed. Prajumnina samam, together with the son of Prajumna. Translation. When Usha beheld him, the most beautiful of men, her face lit up with joy. She took the son of Prajumna to her private quarters, which men were forbidden even to see, and there enjoyed with him. So you can repeat. When Usha beheld him, the most beautiful of men, her face lit up with joy. She took the son of Prajumna to her private quarters, which men were forbidden even to see, and there enjoyed with him. So there's no commentary by the followers of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. So there's very short commentaries by the Acharyas, which basically say the same thing, so we don't need to read the commentaries. Except, actually, Jiva Goswami says something interesting. Her face blossomed with joy. Because of her joy, she could not conceal anything. So, because the symptom of love. Okay, so we're going to read the next text and then we'll comment. Next, actually, two texts. Prajavasashragana kanda dupa dipasanadipi anabhujana bhakshaischa vokyai shushushanarchita gudakanya pureshashvat pravidasnehi atoya naharganan sabubude Ushaya paritendriha. Usha worshipped Aniruddha with faithful service, offering him priceless garments, along with garlands, fragrances, incense, lamps, sitting places, and so on. She also offered him beverages, all types of food, and sweet words. As he thus remained hidden in the young lady's quarters, Aniruddha did not notice the passing of the days, for his senses were captivated by Usha, whose affection for him ever increased. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that Usha honored him with various services described in this verse, and then we have Jiva Goswami with a more lengthy commentary, and we're going to speak about this. She offered foods which were chewed, drunk, sucked, and licked. Pana Bhojana. What does that sound like? Does it sound like what we do chant every morning? Chatur Bidhavi. Yeah. 4 types of food stuffs are offered. So the words actually mean Peya and Bhojya. It takes the meaning according to Krita Luto Bahulam. Panini 33113. She worshipped him devotedly with these items. She had anuraga, which increased in newer ways, pravrida, again and again. Because of that, he was not aware of the passage of time. He was able to leave Krishna and stay there for a long time because it was Krishna's will for certain pastimes. His senses were captivated by Usha. This means he was bewildered by prema. Interesting. And Sanatana Goswami comments, as she was pleased with him, he was pleased with her. That is described in 2 verses. Adibhi includes a bed. She worshipped him with drinks, chewable bhojana, and unchewable bhakshai foods, with jokes. Unchewable, of course, means like liquid foods. With jokes, bhakyai, and bhakti, or services like washing his feet. Shushrushanam. His senses were stolen by Usha, famous for her beauty, Taya, whose anurag increased in every fresh ways, pravada, continually. He thus became unaware of how many days had passed, what was today and whether it was day or night, why his senses and mind were captured by Usha. This means he was bewildered by prema. Okay, so Omagana Timiranda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Meditam Yena Tasmai Shi Gurave Namaha. So what this reminds me of is actually very interesting, is deity worship. Now, why does this remind me of deity worship? Because similar items are there in deity worship, and then both the lover and the beloved, they actually exchange. One becomes the Ashraya, and the other one becomes the Vishaya, and then they exchange. I'm going to explain Ashraya and Vishaya in a second. Like you have Krishna, who is the Vishaya. Now, the word Vishaya means the enjoyer, basically. And the devotee generally is called the Ashraya. Ashraya means the person who bhakti takes shelter of, right? So the devotee has bhakti, and by the process of bhakti, one's rag and anurag become developed as described here. And I'm going to read some quotes that describe the process of bhakti from the standpoint of the devotee. And these quotes are from Srila Prabhupada's books, from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, first from the Madhya-lila 6:13. The loving propensity of the Ashraya, devotee, toward the Vishaya, Lord, becomes so ecstatic that even after enjoying the company of the beloved, the devotee feels that his enjoyment is insufficient. At that time, the lover sees the beloved in a different ways. Such a development of ecstasy is called anurag. Wow. When anurag reaches its highest limit and becomes perceivable in the body, it is called bhava. So also, another point, anyway, let me finish with these quotes first before I talk about the time factor. So, and then there's another quote from the Madhya-lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Actually, this is the 19th chapter. It's quite an extensive quote. Let's see if I'm going to read the whole thing. By regularly rendering devotional service, one gradually becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When that attachment is intensified, it becomes love of Godhead. In other words, it increases continually, as we see in the pastimes of Usha and Aniruddha. It's not just stagnant. It's always increasing and increasing in intensity. And Prabhupada speaks about, in his purport, gives a quote from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Srila Rupa Goswami. This is from 122, which is really a beautiful quote. Shoot, buggies. The process of devotional service, beginning with chanting and hearing, is called sadhana bhakti. This includes the regulated principles that are intended to awaken one to devotional service. In other words, in the beginning, there's not really attachment, what to speak of rag or anurag, but we take it up in faith, ado shraddha. We start doing this in faith, understanding that attachment will develop as long as we don't commit offenses against devotees and as long as we follow the rules and regulations. And here's another statement by Prabhupada. Devotional service is always dormant in everyone's heart. And by the offenseless chanting of the holy names of the Lord, one's original dormant Krishna consciousness is awakened. There's that, again, that controversial subject matter. It's not controversial for me, but for some other people it may be controversial. In other words, you have dormant Krishna. This awakening to Krishna consciousness is the beginning of sadhana bhakti. This can be divided into many different parts, including faith. We already talked about this. Ado shraddha sadhu sango ta bhajana kriya. Association with devotees, initiation by the spiritual master, engagement in devotional service under the instruction of the spiritual master, steadiness in devotional service, and the awakening of a taste for devotional service. In this way, one can become attached to Krishna and his service, and when this attachment is intensified, it results in ecstatic love for Krishna. The word rati is explained in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Actually, I just want to tell a story that I heard yesterday. It was really interesting. There's a famous kirtan leader who described how he came to Krishna consciousness. And it was simply by accident hearing the holy name of the Lord how he came to Krishna consciousness. It's a really interesting story. That he was really into singing in bars before. You know, that's when people dance and chant in bars too. But in order to dance and chant, they have to take intoxication, right? I don't know if any of you have been in a bar. I haven't, but I'm just taking this on authority. So anyway, so he met another devotee, and the devotee invited him to this kirtan, Sangha. I think it was probably Radha Desh, as far as I know, although he wasn't specific about it. So he was there, and he was bored still. He didn't really get into the kirtan. He saw all the devotees. He said, just waiting for this thing to end. And then he gets a message from his girlfriend. Such an interesting story. He gets a message from his girlfriend. It says, "We're finished." And so he tries to text her back, and he describes this is one of the old phones where you got to press a key 3 or 4 times to get a letter. The old days, yeah. So he tries to text her back, and he's not able to, and he's getting frustrated. He said, "What should I do? Should I just sit in my room and cry? Or should I just go up in the mountains here?" I guess it was the mountains somewhere in Europe. He said, "No, I'll just try getting into the kirtan." So he got into the kirtan, and he started dancing. His motivation was just to escape. And he started dancing and chanting, and he said, "Wow, I'm happy." His Krishna consciousness was awakened without him intending for it to be. That shows that Krishna consciousness is dormant, isn't it? It's a proof, actually. Without intending it to be. And then he says, "Wow, this is great." And then he wasn't interested in his girlfriend anymore. And, of course, later on, he went back and was made up with his girlfriend. And he and his girlfriend started to preach Krishna consciousness based on Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. And he became a famous kirtan leader. And still is a famous devotee kirtan leader. Anyway, interesting story. It just proves that Krishna consciousness is dormant. And the rati, the taste will develop just by, just by doing it. Isn't it? Just like another example that I can give is that I talked to all these devotees from India whose marriage was arranged. And, obviously they didn't love the person when they met them at the marriage ceremony. It's just like many of the people I know met their wife right at the ceremony. Can you imagine that? In the West, it sounds like, oh my God. And they have the most loving relationships. They learn to love each other, by attachment and like that. So the same thing applies with Krishna consciousness. I was thinking about, how do we bring people to Krishna consciousness? Well, we have to engage them. Like Prabhupada said one time when people were going around giving lectures, he says, what is the use of your lecture? Isn't it? Unless they actually either give a donation or do some do some service. Just give a lecture, philosophy like that. And then we see, I was just also reading about the history of Vaishnavism in this wonderful book that I gave Drishta Prabhu a copy of, how the Acharyas were able to distribute Vaishnavism everywhere, and usually it was due to kirtans. Narottama Das Thakur putting this Vedic knowledge and Vedic hymns into modern Bengali. And people had these wonderful kirtans and they became attracted. Anyway, so the whole point is spreading Krishna consciousness. We just have to expose people to Krishna, and especially the holy name. Of course, I'm sure Drishta Prabhu and Rudrani will like this one. So, the Harinam. And Haribol. I knew I'd get a Haribol there. So I mean, it's just like when I heard the story of this person, this famous kirtan leader, I was just thinking, wow, somehow or other we got to get people to dance and chant. And that'll bring people to Krishna consciousness. I mean, the philosophy is wonderful, and very few people are coming to Krishna consciousness because what? They're looking for the truth. Most people in this world are frustrated, like their girlfriend left them, or they're in pain, or they're looking for wealth, etc., like that, as Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita. But if we simply expose them to transcendental sound vibration, it wakens up what's already there in the heart. It's really amazing. Okay, so here's further description from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. When a tenderness of the heart is manifested, there is rati, or attachment. But those who are interested in being liberated from material bondage will not manifest this tenderness. In other words, the people are simply interested in mukti. That tenderness doesn't happen because basically they're offenders to the holy name. Because they think the goal is actually just mukti, or liberation, or merging into the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When one is free of material contamination, attachment for Krishna service awakened is called rati. In the material world, there is attachment for material enjoyment, but this is not rati. Transcendental rati can be awakened only on the spiritual platform. Ecstatic love for Krishna prema is described in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This is 141, as follows. This is all Prabhupada's words. When the heart is completely softened and devoid of material desires, and when one's emotional feelings become very strong, one becomes very much attached to Krishna. Such purified emotion is known as pure love. And also this corroborates the same point, that Krishna consciousness is inherent. It says, when the heart is completely softened and devoid of all material desires, when one's emotional feelings become very strong, one becomes very much attached to Krishna. And furthermore, in the Bhajalila, the basic aspects, in another verse, of prema, when gradually increasing to different states, are affection, abhorrence, that means abhorrence of things in this material world, love, attachment, further attachment, ecstasy, and great ecstasy. And here, Prabhupada is describing the different stages of love. I'm going to skip over some of this here and go down a little bit in the purport because we don't have much time. As far as raga is concerned, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that's 3.287, states, that stage at which affection for the beloved converts unhappiness into happiness is called rag, or attachment. When one has such attachment for Krishna, he can give up his own life to satisfy his beloved Krishna. Now remember, in this particular case, Aniruddha is the Supreme Personality of God. He's a Chaturvyuha, one of the Chaturvyuha expansions of the Lord. Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Prajuna, and Aniruddha. So we're not just talking about an ordinary love affair. Although, there are some similarities because the material love affairs, the affairs of this world, are reflections of the love affairs in the spiritual realm, or reflections of Usha and Aniruddha's relationship, or Radha and Krishna's relationship, or Rukmini and Krishna's relationships. When one has such attachment with Krishna, he can give up his own life to satisfy his beloved Krishna. Anurag Bhava and Mahabhav are described in the 6th chapter in the Madhya-lila. We read that, verse 13. And the purport is that verse explains Aniruddha Mahabhav. And just one more quote from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The gradual development of prema can be compared to different states of sugar. So these are different aspects of the loving exchanges that we're reading about here, and also the loving exchanges that we can experience by performing devotional service, because we are also inherently Krishna conscious. It's just not theoretical. The gradual development of prema may be compared to different states of sugar. First, there is the seed of sugar cane, then the juice extracted from the cane. When this juice is boiled, it forms liquid molasses, and then solid molasses, then sugar, candy, rock candy, and finally lozenges. Those are things you suck on, the lozenges, in case you didn't know what that was. So that's Prabhupada's description. So getting back to the point that I was making, that in this particular relationship, what you find described between Usha and Aniruddha and between the Lord and his devotees, the Lord is generally described as the Vishaya and the devotee is the Ashraya, but as we were finding described in this particular context, the positions switch. In other words, it's reciprocal. Even as Krishna says in the Gita, what yaya tamam prabhajante tam sataiva bhajamiham. In other words, as you approach me, I reciprocate accordingly, or as you love me, when you come to the stage of anurag, then I manifest that stage towards you. So Krishna actually becomes the ashraya, and the devotee becomes the vishaya. This is described by the acharyas, of course. It's not simply my speculation. That Krishna starts, of course, Krishna always loves us, but the manifestation of Krishna's love becomes more and more intense as the manifestations of our love become more intense, and it's in complete reciprocation, as we see in the case of Ushanani Ruda. And another point I wanted to make in this regard, and I have some other things to read, but is that when that happens, as mentioned here in this verse, one doesn't notice the passage of time. That's the spiritual world. And the one is actually in eternal time when one's established in one's relationship with the Lord. And in the spiritual world, there is no past or future. It's always what? The eternal present. So therefore, it's like that in loving affairs. At least in the material world, it's like that in the beginning. There's you forget about the passage of time. But in other words, as described in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, these pastimes can actually repeat. And you're not thinking, been there, seen it, done it, like you do in the material world. It's like, what is that, Groundhog Day or something like that movie? Oh my God, haven't I been through this before? So in other words, so we have activities, just bringing it down to earth, because not even talking just about the spiritual world. We have activities in the Krishna consciousness movement, like Mangalarti, like that every day, same time, same station, same temple room, same deities, different pujari. I mean, sometimes it's a little exciting things, like this morning we had the police almost come to Mangalarti because the alarm went off. Everybody else in the ashram, they slept through it. I didn't. So sometimes there's a little difference in the pastimes, like the police come. Anyway, so but still, it's ever fresh, because you don't think, if you're absorbed in the name, in Krishna's name, in the meaning of the mantras you're chanting, and in loving exchange, then it's not boring. But if you're not, if you're just looking at it externally, this is my job, wake up, go to work every morning. My work is Mangalarti. I'm a sannyasi. I'm supposed to go to Mangalarti. If I don't go to Mangalarti, everyone will criticize. It'll be a bad example for everybody else. So I must go to Mangalarti and drag myself samsara davana Goloka. Been there, seen it, done it. So, but if one gets absorbed, then you're in the moment, right? And then you get into eternal time, isn't it? What do the musicians call that when they get into the zone? Yeah. So, we have to get into the zone in Krishna consciousness. And once we're in the zone, then there's no question of past. I mean, you think of the future, what you're going to do for Krishna, but like Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, isn't it? Don't dwell on the past. And don't dwell on the future in a material sense. Plan for the future, be in the present. You can plan for the future in terms of spreading Krishna consciousness and serving Krishna. But you don't live in the future, and you don't live in the past. You live right now. And this is really what's happening with Ushanani Ruda, isn't it? They're right there in the present. And in the spiritual world, everyone's right there in the present. And even though Krishna has previously gone to Mathura and come back from Mathura, you don't think about it, you don't remember it. Not that you have some memory defect, but Alzheimer's disease in the spiritual world, that you don't remember who you were, but it's just like that you're absorbed, feeling separation from Krishna when he goes to Mathura, or apparently goes to Mathura, and feeling anxiety, about the demons, even though there's no demons in the spiritual world, but sometimes devotees act as in that capacity according to the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Anyway, so this is Krishna consciousness, isn't it? Be always absorbed. And so when you're doing Harinama, for example, there's another advertisement for you. Rather than thinking of, that pretty girl who's walking across the street, just get into the holy names. I've been watching some of these kirtan leaders, nice devotee kirtan leaders who are leading these different kirtans. One of my favorites is Radhika Das, And so they're really absorbed in the moment. And then the whole audience becomes absorbed, isn't it? And the people are crying. Even though 99% of the audience are not devotees in these particular cases, not Hare Krishna devotees. They're crying because they're getting, according to Rupa Goswami, when you're exposed to someone who's chanting intensely and purely, or a Bhagavatam class, that you're not worrying about when it's going to be, hoping it's going to be over. But when you're absorbed in it, then you got to reflect, even if you're not a devotee, if there's someone there who's chanting purely, you will experience ecstasy. Even if you're not a devotee. And that will lead you to Krishna consciousness eventually. I mean, when I had that experience, not personally, because I never experienced ecstasy my whole life, but I had that experience one time. I was at a festival in San Diego. It was a Lord Chaitanya festival. I was living in the temple there. And as I was attending the festival, I was distributing books. This is when I was pious. And so I stopped a gentleman, and he just said, why am I experiencing so, he was hearing the holy names. And he was said to me, why am I experiencing so much ecstasy? What are you doing here? Have you been burning marijuana or something? Because there's a lot of incense going on, being burnt. Because he was thinking, those are the old days. He was thinking that we were just covering the whole area with marijuana smoke, and everybody was coming happy because of that. But it was this sound vibration that was reaching out to him, even though he wasn't chanting along. And he's experiencing Krishna consciousness, and he was being woken up. Maybe it'll take like 5 lifetimes before he realizes his identity, that he's a servant of Krishna. But that's really the point. Exposure, then rag, anurag, and everything develops, one after the other. And that's, of course, the doshraddha tata sadhu sangota bhajana kriya, isn't it? Anartha nivritti shat, nishta, ruchi, ashakti, bhava, and prema. Sadakama. That means it's a progressive path if we simply engage people in contemplating the holy name and hearing the holy name. Anyway, I had more things to read, but there's not enough time. So, any questions or comments? We got 1 minute. So, anyway, it's an advertisement for Harinam, I guess. Yeah. 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 Well, there's 2 ways that we can explain it. I mean, one is we can get to philosophy and talk about, how Aniruddha is actually, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But another way is that we can explain how this particular relationship and how it's developing can it can tell us how to develop Krishna consciousness or love of God. That one has to know God to love him, and then the more you contemplate him through his holy name, generally, because that's the Yuga Dharma, or through the deity form, just like its description here is like offering, it's like deity worship that's being described here, by doing service, by offering things to Krishna in any way you can. You like Prabhupada said, offer your intelligence, your work, or whatever to Krishna, and chanting his holy names, one gets gradually more attached. You can tell the metaphor in consciousness, and that's how I generally explain it to people who really couldn't understand the Siddhanta here. Yeah. Yeah, they're not going to understand how God can go be kissing and embracing and engage with her apparently sexual affairs. Confirmed. Sounds like an elephant.
Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Kanvanta Maravindanalaya Taksham Barhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Agom Vidamaniya Nishesha Shobha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami 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 Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham
Namago Vishnu Vajaya Krishna Prasthaya Putale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Samaniti Namate Namaste, Bhakti Deve, Gorani Majar, Name say Shah, Shunyavati, Machacharade, Sacharane. Jaya Sri Krishna Jai Tanya Prabhupada Shri Advaita Gadar Shiva Sati Gaurmata Vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Brahmanityananda Advaita Gadada Siva Sadi Gaurmata Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Brahmanityananda Advaita Gadada Shiva Sadi Gaurmata Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Jai, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Ajay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare, Rama 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 Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravatikacharya Satishi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Chadarahata Shila Prabhupada Kristan Shila Prabhupada
So as Maharaj mentioned, we're having Harinam tomorrow from 11:30 to 1 o'clock at Weaver Street Market. So please come. It's going to be a nice day for Harinam. And also today is Mother Kamalini's birthday. Haribo. Chaitadarpanam arjanam bhavamahadagni nirvapanam Shreya Kairavya Chandri Kavitaranam Vijayavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipanam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namah Hari Bahudan Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapitani Amita Smarane Haribo. Beautiful. Van Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishami Hajjani Nanuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Suhishuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Nadanam Sundarim Kavitam Vajagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Hoitaki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitamam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripayata Vabada Pankaja Stita Duli Sajashim Vachintaya Nayanam Galadashu Daraya Varanam Gad Gadu Radaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Vabrukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavishyati Yuga Yatam Namishena Chakshusha Bhavashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahename Ashlishyavapadamritam Anastumam Adarshanam Marmahatakarotuva Yatatatava Vadadatu Lampato Mat Prananatastu Saeva Napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to fully taste the nectar with which we are always anxious. Oh, my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you've invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh, my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of transcendental bliss. Please pick me up from this ocean and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. Oh, my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And when will they